Hello, product people. Welcome to the Product for Product podcast, hosted by Matt Green, data advocate and product manager, and Moshe Mikanovsky, product leader and author. Our goal is to serve the product community by helping you find products that can help make your work in product management easier. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Product for Product podcast.
Welcome back. On today's episode, Moshe and I are happy to be speaking with Alex Gueriguian about Slack. I'm really excited to talk to Alex today. So let's go ahead and hop in. How you doing, Alex?
I'm very good. Yourself?
Doing wonderful. Hello, Moshe.
Yeah.
Hey, Matt. Hey, Alex. Welcome to the show. A fellow Canadian. I'm always happy when we have more Canadians on the show. Even though I'm happy to have anyone on the show. So
yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So tell us first about yourself, who you are, and what do you do?
Well, I define myself pretty much as a founder and product builder. So over the year, my passion has been to take ideas off the ground and bring them to market and adoption. That's really what I love doing. So I'm currently Chief Product Officer at a rising ad tech startup in Montreal called GoLoot. I'm one of the founding team members. Prior to that, I founded a retail SaaS company, pretty much providing location analytics. So in a nutshell, we pretty much built the Google Analytics, the brick and mortar. And prior to that, I founded a digital and mobile and game studio serving advertising agencies, media and entertainment, and game publishers. So I've been around, but mainly in the space of taking ideas off the ground and really like pushing through to market, product market fit and adoption. So really in the space of 0 to 1 and, pretty much under 100 employees.
Nice. And Montreal does have a big and growing still ecosystem for startups. So it's really cool.
Yes. No, it's booming. It's incredible.
Nice.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Very nice. And that experience of founder bringing 0 to 1 products, finding product market fit is such a great fit for product managers. So CPO is probably like the best fit for you over there. Yeah,
I have to say, when you take on the role, it's always an awkward moment when you kind of define your title in a CPO, because you're really, even if you have a strategic role, you're really heavily, you're really boots on the ground, because you can't just, be high level. You really have to go down and help your teams define their path, their priorities, their focus, and as well take part in how they shape their goals, and really, kind of nurture that sense of ownership throughout an early team, bring them up to maturity and to help them deliver on goals. So it becomes, their own thing, and it doesn't just become a top down. So it's really, it's for me, that's the most exciting part. It's really the most exciting part of my journey so far.
Nice. So creating a culture, product culture.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
Great. You're embedded within the team, so that's awesome.
Yeah, we always love to hear that.
Yeah.
So here we are in the series about async communication, and we chose to speak about Slack.
Yes.
As if no one knows what Slack is. And
breaking news.
So breaking news. Yes, there is this product out there called Slack. And we had an episode already about MS Teams, where we a bit compared. It's very hard not to mention Slack when you talk about MS Teams, because you're like, okay, in Slack you have this, and MS Teams you have that. But let's focus today about Slack. And one of the things that came up in that other episode was that this type of tools is not just for async communication; it's also for sync communication. But I think Slack is a bit more async, or at least it started as an async communication tool, because MS Teams is a Microsoft product, so it has everything integrated together with the let's start a team meeting. So so it's very natural over there. Slack started as online chat, I guess, with a lot of stuff. So let's talk about that.
Okay.
First of all, maybe more focusing on the product management discipline, what are you using Slack for?
Well, I mean, obviously, since we spend most of our days on Google Tools, Jira, Tableau, all these sort of tools. So what we use it for is, and I really like it. I mean, obviously, like you said, you always compare with Microsoft Teams and whatnot, but we really use it as a hub for communication, collaboration, and monitoring progress. So basically, it really acts as a little hub where, you can have these touch bases at one central area rather than having these multiple touch points and always referring back to Jira and monitoring progress of a ticket, so on and so forth. So you get these sort of notifications and whatnot to be able to say that, whether a ticket has been created, it's in progress, and it gives you that ability to come in a timely manner and do what you need to do, rather than continuously going to, check on Jira or check on this sort of document and whatnot. And obviously, that's a nice purpose for Slack. Obviously, it really got us away from email, which is, I think, one of the best thing ever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, that's
getting away from emails, not emails.
Yeah, well, obviously that's how we started, right? I mean, I remember the day where we had 200 emails a day, which was ridiculous.
Yes.
And now I look at my inbox on a professional standpoint. I have more personal emails that I actually have professional emails,
right?
Which is amazing. I mean,
yeah. So it's interesting point that you brought over there. You have I guess the source of truth is still in the other systems, like Jira will still be the source of truth for the tickets and the progress, but the access to the source of truth is done through Slack. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, and that's where the crossing that chasm is really important. Mm-hmm. Because it's not Slack doesn't provide you with actionable items. I mean, it's a way to poke somebody and whatnot. And originally, when we started with Slack, it spread like wildfire. Everybody was using Slack, and we still use Slack, and it becomes a source of interruption, a constant source of interruption. And what we really focused on is to create more meaningful interruptions. Because I mean, for a PM, it's fine. That's your role, to really be interrupted to a certain extent. But what you want is create that momentum, that traction, that focus, that fluidity. But for other team members, whether it's on the design team, on the data team, on the engineering, I mean, they're in a zone, they're in a mindset, and they're on a builder mindset. And to pull them away constantly, remember, when we were back at the office, where hey guys, do you have 5 minutes to talk? That's creating a lot of noise. So we try to really focus those interruptions in a more meaningful manner. And the source of truth, like you say, Moshe, is really in those tools, because obviously it's a conveyor belt. It's not meant to host your feedback. It's there to, notify you, exchange, but then use Miro, use Jira, use Tableau. You use your tools to really input those touch points into those tools as a source of truth, because obviously Slack is not a source of truth.
I like the conveyor belt example there, because it's almost like I feel like yes, I'm sitting on my chair, and there is this conveyor belt coming in and giving me all of these information from all these different type of source of truth, and make me act on it. And then also what you mentioned about how interrupting it was in the beginning, but then you created structure to it. I think the interruption, and you mentioned before the emails, I think that emails were always interrupting, especially if you were checking them constantly, right? I know some people check them twice a day, in the morning, in the evening, or whatever. But if you check them constantly, they were interrupting all the time, but you couldn't do structure to it, especially not collaboratively with other people. And probably when you start using a tool like Slack, it's unstructured and it has the same problem as an email, but then you can structure it and then it becomes much more productive.
Yes, and we can't and tools are tools, right? I mean, it's all about people management at that point, right? So I mean, the goal as a company or as a team is to use those tools to your advantage. So I mean, for us, and I think a lot of people strive to keep a focus on communication and fluid collaboration. So, I mean, if we use those tools for shared understanding, shared alignment, reduce frictions when it comes to heavy processes and whatnot, and get people to be more productive and happy in their work, then we're achieving what we're supposed to do. And more often than not, it's not the tool that's the problem. It's really either how we manage those people or that culture or those, processes internally. Because they all kind of do the same thing. I mean, to a certain extent. And obviously Slack did, like I said, did catch on like wildfire, and people were, I mean, it was insane at the beginning. But we tend to then say, look, I mean, especially with remote work, and where things happen on video conferencing, Slack, mostly. It's important to kind of use those tools to the advantage of, what you're trying to achieve as a company rather than just use them because they're out there.
Right. Yeah. I think something else to be mindful of is how you're using Slack. So I've worked in Microsoft Teams and now I've worked in Slack, and Slack can get very busy and get very interruptive if you allow it to be. And so the self-discipline and the ability to pause notifications and the ability to control that is like
it's difficult.
Superpower. It's a superpower.
Yeah, like for me, it's like because you're always tagged, right? So yes. you're always notified, even if it doesn't necessarily concern you directly. Yeah. And I wake up in the morning. First thing I do is check on Slack because I have, we might have people that are 3 hours before us. Yep. We had people that are 12 hours before after us. Like we have people in Europe, we have people in Asia, not because they're permanently there, but because of the remote position, I'm going to go visit family for a few months and whatnot. So we kind of need to manage that. But I'm always on Slack. But that's my nature. I don't expect people to be on Slack constantly and checking. Slack. But it is. That's the downfall of those tools. They're extremely addictive, right?
Yeah. That's so
especially
true.
When you tag people on them. I mean, and that's one thing. Tag people that need to be tagged on rather than just for visibility.
Right. And there's even some feature in there where you can actually hear typing. And so like you can hear. I've been in meetings before and I can hear typing in my ear. And it's just like I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to find out how to turn that off somehow. So.
Well, I see Matthew is typing and I'm like, I'm waiting.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Now, one of the things that we talked about unstructured versus structured, there is also, and then we talked a bit about collaboration. There is also the transparency that you can create with a tool like that. Because emails, when you send them personally to someone or even to a team, only those people can get them. But with Slack channels or discussions, if you have the discipline not to have private discussions, but to have team discussion, and even if not everyone needs to be aware of something at the moment, they can still tap into it whenever they want to, and the transparency is there.
Yeah, and again, yes, I 100% agree, because in for example, when we're at a product discovery stage for once we've established our quarterly roadmaps based on strategy and whatnot and collaboration, then we need to elicit and bring forth, what are the efforts we're going to be working on, and having these, product channels or whatnot where, everybody's there and they gain that visibility. This being said, I mean, it's good, for example, to prepare agendas, maybe some recaps, action items and whatnot, to then, bring them into their respective environments. But it does I truly think it participates if you use them properly in terms of avoiding silos and avoiding these channels, because when you go from discovery to delivery, obviously, I mean, you want to avoid as much as possible that whole waterfall effect, that everything has been defined and set in a box and then handed off to a team or individuals and say, take this and now execute. So it brings them in. And then, for example, when you start chatting a little bit too much, obviously what's really cool, and, you know, before you had remember you had the video calling, which never really worked that well, but you can just start a huddle and then avoid those, because communication is the most difficult thing for humans. I mean, we've not have been able to master communication. And what an engineer says and thinks and versus a designer, you know, it's a different language sometimes. And just coming into an informal huddle and just to say, look, here's what I meant and whatnot, kind of like reduces that sort of friction point or misunderstanding and helps that conversation move forward. Rather than staying in that little rut where I didn't quite understand what you really meant when you said this, and you know, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, you gave a good example over there on the usage in product management, or how it can help in product management from delivery to execution. Do you have other examples where Slack can be helpful or useful in some of the product management life?
Well, obviously, I think setting up alerts, for example, whether you have data quality issues, I think having those alerts are interesting, but also having bugs coming in and to be able to see and identify how they become a priority. Sometimes we tend to have a bug or whatnot and then just put them top level. We need to see and evaluate if they can be pushed or mitigated in certain other ways. Obviously, engineers sometimes have their own environment where they go on for different topics and whatnot. So you still have those silos, but we really use it for product a lot, for like product discovery. We use it for, you know, to bring it to the epic and story level. And then once we have it into those tickets, we do want to follow progress to be able to ensure that has the team understood what they, you know, the real problems? Have the teams understood? Is it going on course? Is it progressing? And if it's not, if it's still on the back burner, why? And then we can start asking questions rather than say, why is it not done? And just to be able to help navigate throughout. It becomes more of a little like a sense of alert. It doesn't tell you the truth. It helps you ask questions over demanding results, right? Obviously. And other than that, obviously, we use it quite a bit for project deployment in customer environments, and sometimes bring in with Slack Connect other organizations into Slack, which I think rather, because I mean, at a certain stage, you don't need heavy tools. Sometimes, you know, deploying into an environment, into a customer environment is mainly centered around exchanging communication and exchanging files more than having a proper project management or a customer success solution put in place. So having that in place avoids these dreadful email communications and phone communications that take forever to respond or put in place. So I think that helps a lot.
One of the challenges I had in the past was that if I used Slack or I used MS Teams and the clients use one of those, they may not want to go to the other one to be on that communication. You see, so it's like a company chose one, especially if it's a big company and they have restrictions on what they can install and what they can use. I had that challenge of, okay, I want to really chat with you like I chat with my team members. You're my client, and I think it will be much more helpful if we can do that. But they had those restrictions.
Yeah, I mean, we've been lucky enough that Slack has been it's easily adopted or, willing to integrate. So, I mean, sometimes it might not be the go-to solution at the organization level, but they have at the team or department levels the ability to implement or have a little bit more independence and use these tools. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm sure if you go into more restrictive or more controlled organizations, MS Teams. And that's the thing, though. I mean, like whether you use Slack or MS Teams, I mean, they all have these pros and somewhat cons. So I think it's as a team. I mean, the reason why we chose Slack obviously is because we don't operate on Microsoft, and you have this sort of, I'm not Microsoft, I don't want to be, and like you have these sort of like this somewhat negative aura. But I've used Teams because of firms using Teams and whatnot, and it's I mean it's good. I mean a tool is a tool. It's how you use them, and you can't find the perfect situation in one versus the other. So I think it's to as teams operate, they need or should have flexibility in terms of, we can use this in certain situation, and if this rises in terms of, we'll have the option to use Teams or something else.
And actually, one of the use cases that is really big in Slack, and I don't think it's I've never seen it in MS Teams actually as a usage, is to create user community. And for us product managers, the ability to connect with our users for discovery, for reaching out to them, on research, for whatever, it's huge. I mean, we always look for something like that. And there is a lot of companies that are doing those Slack channels or Slack. It's not a channel, it's a whole Slack. I don't know what they call it, environment, or
I think it's it becomes a Slack environment. Like it becomes a Slack environment in itself.
Yeah, I forget the name that they use for that, but in general, you have your own internal Slack, and then you have the Slack community where you invite your and actually, Matt, you remember we created one for product for product, but
that's right.
We don't really have a community so much that it was just the two of us. Sorry.
Yeah, we did a great one though.
But this is like one of those, discoverable. Well, actually, that's one of the things I find hard to discover on Slack. They don't really have a list of all of those communities out there. You have to be invited or have to know what the link is. And actually, I talked with a no-code founder in England. I can't remember his name. I talked with him a couple of years ago, and he created this no-code application that has a list of all the Slack channels that he knows about, and there was like thousands and thousands of. So he was collecting them, and in the beginning he just had them in Airtable, and then he exposed it into an app or something. But I mean, that's one of the usages that I see. Yep. Do you have something like that, or now you have an idea and you're going to start it?
But yeah, we do have in Montreal, for example. I think it's Startup Montreal, and they do have a Slack community where founders or startup, the whole startup community can chime in. And you have those channels, whether it's general, whether it's I'm looking for resources, or I'm looking, anything goes at that point. And you have a moderator that sometimes reorganizes some channels and based on duplicates or whatnot. But it is true that Slack has that opportunity, but it doesn't connect with that discovery process, or the ability to discover those communities. You have to find them on your own to a certain extent, and link to them.
So with your company, do you already have something like that for your users?
No. That's something we do have it within. Like we do have Slack channels internally, but no, we don't have that yet. And I'm not sure, sometimes it's not about imposing it. You have to like kind of poke and see that interest, because otherwise you kind of carry that burden putting that in, seeing how it's going to be maintained, how is it going to be innovative. Because so that's where I think that mindset right now is not there in terms of bringing the community or linking to the community more than shipping the product or hiding the product with its market. And that's where the shift is right now.
You're absolutely right about that. It's not just about putting it in there and if we build it, they will come. It's about managing in it and creating value in it like any other product.
Yep.
And I think that's what Matt and I saw when we created it. No one came, so we actually didn't tell anyone about it. So but also if I'm thinking about some of those other communities that I'm on, when I was a Pendo user, and we talked about Pendo a few times in this podcast, I was on their Slack environment for their users, and it was quite busy, I say, but most of the stuff I saw over there was about announcements of new features. And so that was another channel for them to create those announcements, where I could get those announcements somewhere else. I didn't need the Slack channel for that. But they had they had a team, I think part of marketing actually, but I might be wrong about that was focusing on building that community. And they had a lot of users with a lot of usage in there. So, it kind of makes sense that some of those users will be active. So it's also about the volume of users, I guess. Yeah. But you're right. Managing it is also a big thing that can take some of your time. And if you don't have people coming in, then it might be a bit of waste of time.
Thinking about the low code stuff, like the communities in low code, like we went through that, or no code solutions, where those communities are part of the application. So they didn't necessarily need a Slack, but it was part of the actual experience of it. So
but it's interesting because I was able to find some guests for this show through some of those Slack communities, because that was another way to reach out to people where they are. We're always, as product managers, we always think about where are our users, where can we find them? Let's reach out to them. And I think Slack channels where these people. So the one you mentioned about the Montreal startup ecosystem. If this is your target users, that's a good way to reach out to people.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, it's not something permanent. I deleted the Slack after a while. I mean, doesn't mean that I won't come back, but it didn't serve. It's what value can I extract for our company's benefit? So for me, it was not just for me, but how can I use it in exchange to bring value to GoLoot in general? And at one point, I was like, it felt I'm looking for. It was a lot focused on. I'm looking for hires. And I'm looking for, and sometimes, but you do have a lot of questions around. I'm looking for people to answer these surveys or these user researches and whatnot. So it's hard to kind of gauge that volume of one environment. How will it serve those interactions and that value within a community? Because there's so many out there that need these things. So as an external user, how many channels or environments will I be connected to, and what value will it provide, and what value will I provide as well? So it's there, it's good, but it's on a need per basis, I guess.
Yeah, and if we're already talking about that, there is actually quite a few Slack channels or environments for product managers, for aspiring product managers or local product managers. So if anyone is interested from our listeners, reach out to us. We can share with you. We can also share it in LinkedIn when we publish this episode. I joined a few of them, but I rarely participate or go in there. But I would sometimes kind of get notifications and I will check, okay, what's going on. And if after a while you don't see it, then when you go in there, you will have pages and pages of
scroll through,
or you have crickets, right? So it really depends on the channel.
Yeah, and that's why I think sometimes, because it was like Twitter back in the day, where where you miss out, and then you're like you have to scroll and see what have you missed and whatnot. And that's kind of sometimes a downfall. It's not necessarily to follow a heftier conversation. It's really an in and out intervention. So maybe it's not the right it's not meant to do all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And with what GoLoot is doing, you're in the marketing and
advertising,
advertising. So I guess if you have access to some of those Slack ecosystems with people that are talking about advertising and marketing, that's probably where your users or people are, right?
And obviously because obviously, I mean, you serve both sides of the marketplace, right? You'll serve advertisers and you'll serve publishers that will host our technology into their environment. But at the end, the publisher and the advertiser is looking to have the user's attention. So obviously, we tend to have these sort of surveys, these reach searches, these prototypes, and get those feedbacks based on how does a user perceive, how would the user interact, what are the user's motivations within its digital journey. So that's also very important for us. Obviously, a publisher will be, I want revenue, I want attention, I want this. An advertiser is some of the same thing. And it gives us that ability to really drill down and nail down towards that. What problem and how is that solution actually helping solving that problem? But we do want to capture the user's feedback because he's ultimately, at the end of the day, using the product.
Questions that we always ask our guests about the product they're using. 3 features you like the most in Slack and 3 features that you hate the most. And maybe I shouldn't use the word hate, but you don't like. So let's start with the things that you really, really like.
The things that I really, really like, obviously, just Slack in general, having the ability to kind of eliminate the use of emails for no good reason. So I think that for me is the UVP of Slack. Then after that, what I really, really enjoy are the voice huddles. I don't particularly like the video huddles per se, but to chime in where you're having a debate might be starting, and then rather than having it lost through words and whatnot, is you jump into an informal huddle. You kind of remove those friction points, and then you can go back. So that has been a really lifesaver to a certain extent, especially on remote teams, rather than setting up a formal Google Meet or so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And
just to interject there, I agree with you that this is a great feature. On the async communication theme that we're on, you have to be careful with that, because then things are not written down. People don't follow up on closing the loop on what was decided and stuff like that.
Yes, and that's why it becomes informal. And it for me and for us, we try to help it move the conversation forward, because I took off on vacation for a week because of the kids' spring break.
Right.
I lost it. I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, you kind of go in, but I mean, it's not a sense where you gather information, but you unclog that conversation.
Yes.
And obviously Slack Connect, I think introducing other organizations and outside team members into that environment just kind of removes the use of what tools do we need to start using and whatnot, and facilitates those sort of lead times of having these meetings where because in Montreal we're extremely notorious of saying we never have time for meetings. I mean, if you ask for a meeting, a phone call, an email or whatnot, it'll take so much time. So that has been proven to really facilitate.
Nice. And 3 unliked features, or features that you really think that they should work on, introduce, and maybe someone at Slack is listening to this.
Well, I'm happy. I'm glad that they're sort of deprecating their calls because and I think it's more on the voice huddles and the video huddles because that never really panned out. Anyways, not for me and not for us. But the video huddles sometimes are somewhat difficult to manage screen sharing. And that I mean, because obviously I prefer the voice huddles because you're in there for like 5-10 minutes tops. And you want to actually use a piece of or an artifact to kind of, unclog that conversation. So the voice, the video huddle seems anyways, in our opinion, to not really manage screen sharing properly. And apart from that, might be
it's funny about the video. The first time that I used that, I didn't even see where it was because by default they open it up a very, very little one on the corner, and I'm like, oh, I see some pictures out there. So.
And so now because I usually have my Slack application on a second screen on the right or on top or on the bottom. So sometimes I might be looking on the other side or whatnot. So that's why. Yeah, we just use the audio and if we need to share, we'll share.
Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you there. So you were saying other features you don't like so much?
I mean, apart from that, like I said, I think if you are constantly, tagged, so when you're tagged for awareness is one thing, but it would be amazing if you were tagged for I need an action or something actionable from you, and I would just want you to be included, but not necessarily have that sort of notification, because it is a sort of notification overload in terms of, that's all you kind of do. And you're like, am I supposed to do something, or I'm just supposed to be aware of? But that might be a more fundamental problem of notifications in general.
Yeah, I mean, part of it could be also discipline of people how to tag, but if there is some automatic tagging that happens because you're part of the channel or because or whatever, then you're right. There might be a bit more smarter ways to do that. I wonder if AI could help with that.
Well, yeah. I mean, just to piggyback on your previous podcast with Magali, I think, definitely AI, especially that it's conversational. could help aggregate, consolidate, summarize this is what happened yesterday.
That's a great point.
And that would most likely kind of alleviate that sense of constantly needing to go forward and and you
what did I miss? What did I miss, and how can I quickly
contribute, get up to speed and whatnot? And that would be a great fit in terms of AI technology.
I love that.
It may also help your writing, because I know you have to be very intentional when you write in Slack. And so, and that's part of the blockers where you have to hop in a huddle and like clear that blockage up. Like maybe I didn't communicate this well enough, or there's more questions where at some point assistance with AI could come in and help clarify that stuff with you.
And especially that it's contained within a sort of context. So AI could really, analyze the context in which that conversation is taking place. So obviously it could just reframe that conversation to be a little bit more precise on whether it's an engineering matter, whether it's a design matter, whether it's a broad matter. Because sometimes people write up so much copy that you're like, this is not the place to.
That's it. And even in the search, so we use search a lot in Slack to find historical references to work that's been done, and so it's a real can be a source of truth. And so maybe the Slack can say, hey, you're asking this question, but this has already been asked, or this has already
been exactly.
Right. Or you don't open a new
channel.
Or
don't open a new channel.
A new discussion here because there is already done. Now, we never actually mentioned integrations yet since the beginning of this discussion. And integration is a very, very big thing in Slack. So maybe there is already some AI utility out there that does something like that we're not aware of, or someone that is trying to do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure somebody's trying to. I mean, obviously, that's a great point. One of the reasons sometimes we even take decisions is, do you have a Slack integration?
Mm-hmm.
Most softwares, or at least a lot of them, do. But I'd be very curious to know. That's something that'll probably take up my my Oscar watching time, where I'll probably be looking at that. Same thing as you opened up with Jira as well. Jira and Slack, if they had two AI conversational intelligence or tools bolted onto, it could help us. It could help us save so much time and focus on the outcome more than, searching, looking, typing, and whatnot. But I think that's something that's definitely missing. Most likely, it's just a question of time.
That's very exciting.
And then the last question we usually ask is about the company. How do you like Slack as a company? Did you ever have to reach out to them or talk with them? I know now that they're also being acquired by Salesforce a couple of years ago. So have you seen a change since they've been acquired?
No, we're a team of 20, and then with outside collaborators, it can go up to 30. And even in previous years or previous experiences, Slack is pretty straightforward. And if you lose, if you happen to lose something, so be it. It doesn't matter. If you don't consider it as a source of truth. But no, I don't. We haven't really felt the need to really reach out. I mean, that's not, in the past 3 years, anyways. We haven't reached out or felt the need to reach out. And the use and onboarding of it is pretty straightforward and self-contained. So no, not something, anyways, that we've felt.
Mm-hmm. I think that one of the most interesting thing about the company is their story, as a product manager, and for you, I'm sure, as an entrepreneur and founder, how they started and how they pivoted into becoming what they are today. And then, their exit with Salesforce, which was a bit eye-raising, for some people, me included. I didn't see the big fit there, but, who knows? I'm not the one making those decisions, right? But but in general, their story is fascinating to learn, how they started from a gaming organization and build this internal tool for them to collaborate, and then saw that this is really the tool that they should build, and forgot about everything else they did and just focused on that. So
yeah, that's incredible. I think that's, for us, you read on products, right? You read on the history of products. How did this start? And you want to know, the prior to the, the glam and the moment that really it took off. You want to know before, as a founder, as a product person, you want to know, how did it start and how did it get there? And these are one of the fascinating stories, I think, as well, because going from a gaming perspective to saying it's not really working out, and talking to, one of his friends, I forget his name. I think it's like Butterfield or what. I think his name is Butterfield, and
Stuart Butterfield.
And then he hooked up with one of his friends, which was I guess a service designer. And they took the time to really assess what was going on and whatnot. And they really narrowed down, well, you're actually, communicating, or the community is actually communicating within themselves. And how can you take that and make it into a sustainable product?
Yeah. Yep. But they were not the first one that did it. I mean, before Slack, I used the product, or my team that I was on, used a product by Atlassian. I can't remember its name now, but the fact I can't remember the name probably means that it didn't go very far. Although I think that some people are still using it, because I heard some people recently telling me about it. But like any other product, some people, even if the product is not, even if some people don't like it, but if there's such a big following and such a big adoption, then you can become very successful.
Yeah, and I think that's what with the Slack. I mean, with it working with Salesforce, I think what it saw is Microsoft Teams. Teams is in so many companies, and it already has that footprint there, so it has so many more active users. I think because, hey, I have Microsoft everything, and it works so well within companies like that. And so I think Slack just saw like, hey, we need to partner with or be bought by a large company.
Yeah, maybe that was a rationale over there. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But it does. I mean, there is a fit there to the type of companies that are using Salesforce.
Mm-hmm.
At least in the beginning days of Salesforce, where it was, more for smaller startup companies and stuff like that. Although these days Salesforce is used by huge companies as well.
Yeah.
And huge companies are much more. They're very behind on adopting tools like Slack.
Yeah.
So maybe that was their tactic over there.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. But
and it helps Salesforce too, because they also bought Tableau, so like they kind of bought these other solutions to help build out Salesforce.
Right. And Salesforce is doing great. I mean, they're really doing great. So awesome. Thank you so much, Alex, for this discussion. Even though we knew upfront that lots of people know about Slack, there's still a lot of stuff to talk about and learn some new things. So I really appreciate that. Where can people reach out to you?
They can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty much there. Other than that, there's obviously email, which is basically alexgueriguian@gmail.com. And I'm always very happy to meet, to talk about anything, whether it's entrepreneurial or founders' journeys or product or just life, success, failure stories. These are all things that we go through in life.
Nice.
So I'm always happy to discuss informally and get to know people. So LinkedIn is the go-to, and then obviously there's always my email.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex. This might have inspired us maybe to kickstart that Slack channel again, Moshe. Maybe we need to talk about some options there. So
well, let's leave it to our audience here. If you
let's put it out there, right?
Yeah. If you got to this point in the podcast today and you feel that there is a value there, let us know.
Yeah.
We'll send you the invite. We can also put actually the Slack channel link in the comments of this episode. So just join us over there. And we can always chat about products for products.
Yeah, we can test it out. Cool. Sounds good. Well,
Perfect.
Thanks again, Alex. Thanks to all listeners. And thank you, Moshe, as always. And we'll talk to everybody later.
Take care, everyone.
Right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you to all the listeners. We really appreciate the feedback and support. Please leave us a review to help others find the show on Apple or Spotify or anywhere else you're listening to the show.